Baby saw a German Shepherd locked in a storage locker. What happened next left. Everyone in tears. What happened that day at the storage facility will shock you to your core. Before we begin this incredible story, hit that like button, share with someone who loves dogs, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. The morning started like any other Saturday for 5-year-old Tommy Chen. His small hands gripped his favorite toy car as he followed his mother Lisa through the maze of orange metal doors at Secure Store storage facility. Lisa had just started working there 3 weeks ago, managing the weekend shifts to make ends meet after her husband passed away in a construction accident 8 months earlier. Tommy didn't mind spending Saturdays at the storage facility. To him, the endless rows of locked units were like a giant puzzle waiting to be explored. "Stay close, Tommy," Lisa called over her shoulder as she checked her clipboard. "I need to inspect the units with overdue payments today." Tommy nodded, but his attention was already wandering. The facility was mostly empty this early in the morning, just the way he liked it. The concrete floors echoed with their footsteps, and the fluorescent lights hummed overhead, creating strange shadows between the units. His grandfather Walter was supposed to pick him up around noon, but that was still hours away. "Can I play hide and seek, Mama?" Tommy asked, tugging at Lisa's work uniform. Lisa glanced down at her son, seeing the hopeful expression on his round face. She knew this job wasn't ideal for a single mother, but she had no choice. The bills wouldn't pay themselves, and Walter could only help so much on his firefighter's pension. "Just in this row where I can see you," she said, ruffling his black hair. "And don't touch anything, okay?" Tommy grinned and immediately darted behind a large plastic plant someone had left in the hallway. Lisa smiled despite her exhaustion. At least Tommy was adapting well to their new reality. Too well, sometimes. He rarely mentioned his father anymore, and she wasn't sure if that was healing or just his way of protecting her from more pain. As Lisa began checking unit numbers against her list, Tommy wandered a bit further than he should have. The game of hide and seek was more fun when he could find really good spots. He turned the corner into another corridor, this one dimmer because several lights had burned out. The units here looked older, their orange paint faded and scratched. That's when he heard it, a sound so faint he almost missed it. Like scratching, but different. Tommy stopped in his tracks, his toy car forgotten in his hand. He held his breath and listened harder. There it was again. A soft, whimpering sound, like when he had cried himself to sleep those first nights after Daddy didn't come home. The sound was coming from Unit 47. Tommy approached slowly, his heart beating faster. The unit had a heavy padlock on it, rusty and old-looking. A red notice was taped to the door. Payment overdue, 6 months, scheduled for auction. The whimpering came again, followed by weak scratching against metal. "Hello?" Tommy whispered, pressing his ear against the door. "Is someone in there?" The scratching became more urgent, and then he heard it, a dog's whine, desperate and weak. Tommy's eyes widened. Without thinking, he ran back through the corridors, his sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. "Mama! Mama!" he shouted, bursting around the corner where Lisa was photographing a unit's contents. "Tommy, what's wrong?" Lisa immediately dropped her clipboard, alarmed by the panic in his voice. "There's a doggy! In the unit! He's crying, Mama! He needs help!" Lisa frowned. "A dog? Tommy, that's not possible. No one would leave a dog in a storage unit." "But I heard him!" "Unit 47. Please, Mama, please!" Tommy grabbed her hand and pulled with all his might. Lisa sighed but followed, partly to prove to Tommy that his imagination was running wild. But as they approached Unit 47, her expression changed. She heard it too. The unmistakable sound of an animal in distress. "Oh my God!" she breathed, pulling out her phone. "I need to call my supervisor." "We have to help him now," Tommy pleaded, tears forming in his eyes. "Tommy, I can't just break into someone's unit. There are rules." "But he's dying in there." Lisa's hands shook as she dialed her supervisor, Mr. Peterson. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times before going to voicemail. She tried again with the same result. The whimpering from inside the unit grew weaker. "Please, Mama," Tommy begged, his small hands pressed against the metal door. "Remember when Daddy said we should always help those who can't help themselves?" Lisa's heart clenched at the mention of her late husband. David had always been the one to stop for stranded motorists, to help elderly neighbors with groceries, to rescue cats from trees. She looked down at Tommy's pleading face and saw so much of his father in those determined eyes. "Let me check the records," she said, hurrying back to the office with Tommy close behind. Her fingers flew across the computer keyboard as she pulled up Unit 47's rental history. The name made her pause. Sergeant Marcus Hayes. Last payment received 7 months ago. No forwarding address. No emergency contact updated in the system. "Mama, hurry!" Tommy urged, dancing from foot to foot. Lisa bit her lip. She could lose her job for this. They desperately needed this income. But the sounds from that unit were getting weaker, and her son was right. David would never have hesitated. She grabbed the master keyring from the locked drawer, her hands trembling slightly. "We're just checking," she told herself, as much as Tommy. "Just making sure everything's okay." They rushed back to Unit 47. Lisa fumbled with the keys, trying several before finding one that fit. The padlock was so rusted it took several attempts to turn it. Finally, with a grinding click, it opened. Lisa rolled up the door, and the smell hit them immediately, the stench of waste and desperation. Tommy covered his nose, but didn't back away. As their eyes adjusted to the darkness inside, they saw him. A German shepherd lying on his side on a filthy blanket, his ribs visible through his matted fur. Empty water bowls were scattered around him, and scratch marks covered the inside of the door where he had tried desperately to escape. The dog lifted his head weakly at the sound of the door opening, his brown eyes dull with resignation. "Oh no," Lisa whispered, her hand covering her mouth. But Tommy had already rushed forward, dropping to his knees beside the dog. "It's okay, doggy. We're here to help you." The German shepherd's tail moved slightly, not quite a wag, just an acknowledgement. Tommy gently placed his small hand on the dog's head, and the animal closed his eyes, leaning into the touch as if he hadn't felt kindness in months. "We need to get him water," Lisa said, snapping into action. "Tommy, stay with him. I'll be right back." She ran to the office, filling a bowl with water from the break room sink. Her mind raced with questions. How long had this poor animal been trapped here? How was he even still alive? And who would do something so cruel? When she returned, she found Tommy had positioned himself so the dog's head rested on his lap. He was humming softly, the same lullaby David used to sing to him at bedtime. The sight nearly broke her heart. "Here, sweetheart," Lisa said, handing Tommy the water bowl. Tommy held it carefully to the dog's mouth. At first, the German shepherd didn't respond, but then his tongue darted out, lapping weakly at the water. He drank slowly, as if even this simple act exhausted him. "What's that on his collar?" Tommy asked, pointing to something metallic. Lisa leaned closer and saw military dog tags attached to a worn leather collar. She carefully turned them to read, "Max, K9 Unit, Classified, Property of U.S. Military." "His name is Max," Tommy said softly, stroking the dog's ear. "Hi, Max. I'm Tommy." Max's eyes opened again, focusing on the boy's face with what seemed like recognition, though that was impossible. They had never met before. "We need to get him to a vet," Lisa said, pulling out her phone again. "He needs help immediately." "Can we keep him, Mama?" "Tommy, no. We can't have pets in our apartment, you know that. And we can barely." She stopped herself before saying they could barely afford food for themselves, let alone a dog. "We just need to make sure he gets help." "But what if they put him to sleep?" Tommy's eyes filled with tears again. "What if no one wants him because he's sick?" Before Lisa could answer, they heard footsteps approaching. Walter appeared in the doorway, his tall frame blocking the light. At 68, he still carried himself like the firefighter he had been for 30 years, though his hair was now completely silver, and his face deeply lined. "What's going on here?" he asked, taking in the scene. "I came early to surprise you both, and the office was empty." "Grandpa!" Tommy exclaimed. "We found Max." He was locked in here all alone. Walter's expression darkened as he surveyed the situation. He stepped into the unit, his experienced eyes taking in every detail. The scratch marks, the empty bowls, the dog's emaciated condition. "How long?" he asked Lisa quietly. 6 months since the last payment. The renter was military, Sergeant Marcus Hayes. Walter knelt beside Tommy and Max, his weathered hands gently examining the dog. Max didn't flinch or growl, seeming to understand that these people meant no harm. "This dog's been through hell," Walter said. "But he's a fighter. Look at his eyes, still alert, still aware. Military dogs are trained to survive." "Grandpa, we have to save him," Tommy pleaded. "Please?" Walter and Lisa exchanged a look over Tommy's head. They both knew the complications, the apartment rules, the financial strain, the fact that this dog technically belonged to someone else, even if that someone had abandoned him. "First things first," Walter said, carefully sliding his arms under Max. "We get him medical attention. I'll carry him to my truck." Max whimpered softly as Walter lifted him, but he didn't struggle. Tommy stayed close, his small hand maintaining contact with Max's fur, whispering reassurances. "You could lose your job for this," Walter murmured to Lisa as they walked. "I know," she replied. "But look at Tommy's face. How could I walk away?" Walter nodded approvingly. "David would be proud." They loaded Max carefully into the back of Walter's pickup truck, Tommy insisting on riding in the back with him, despite Lisa's protests about safety. "I'll drive slow," Walter assured her. "The boy won't leave that dog's side now." As they drove to the emergency veterinary clinic, Tommy cradled Max's head in his lap, feeling the dog's labored breathing. Max's eyes remained fixed on Tommy's face, as if memorizing every feature. "You're going to be okay," Tommy whispered. "I promise. I won't let anything bad happen to you anymore." Max's tail moved slightly again, and this time it was definitely a wag, weak but unmistakable. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was just about to take her lunch break when they burst through the clinic doors. One look at the German Shepherd in Walter's arms, and she immediately went into emergency mode. "Treatment room 3 now," she commanded, leading the way. As she began her examination, her expression grew increasingly grim. Severe dehydration, malnutrition, muscle atrophy. This dog hasn't had proper food or water in weeks, possibly months. How did he survive? "Military training," Walter suggested, explaining about the dog tags. Dr. Rodriguez nodded thoughtfully. "That would explain his resilience. Military dogs are conditioned to endure extreme situations." She paused, running her scanner over Max. "He's microchipped. Let me see what comes up." She frowned at her computer screen. "That's odd. The chip is there, but it's not a standard pet microchip. It's encrypted, military grade. I can't access the information without special authorization." "What does that mean?" Lisa asked. "It means this isn't just any military dog. This is a specialized K9, probably involved in classified operations." Tommy, who had been quietly holding Max's paw, looked up. "Is that why someone hurt him? Because he's special?" The adults exchanged uncomfortable glances. Sometimes children ask questions that cut right to the heart of things. "We don't know why he was left in that storage unit, Doctor," Rodriguez said gently. "But right now, we need to focus on getting him healthy. He'll need intravenous fluids, antibiotics, careful refeeding. It'll be expensive and take time." "How expensive?" Lisa asked, her stomach sinking. "With the condition he's in? Several $1,000s at minimum, and that's just for initial treatment." Lisa felt her knees weaken. They didn't have that kind of money. They barely had enough for groceries after paying rent and utilities. "I'll cover it," Walter said immediately. "Dad, no. You're on a fixed income." "I have savings," Walter interrupted, "and this is important." He looked meaningfully at Tommy, who was whispering something to Max. "Sometimes you have to do what's right, regardless of the cost." Dr. Rodriguez began setting up an IV line. He'll need to stay here for at least 48 hours for observation and treatment. After that, he'll need a quiet place to recover, regular meals, medication. "He can stay in my garage," Walter offered. "It's heated, and I can set up a proper area for him." "But Grandpa lives in a different building," Tommy said, his voice rising with panic. "I won't be able to see Max every day." "You can visit after school," Lisa assured him, though she wasn't sure how she'd manage the transportation. "What if he thinks we abandoned him like the bad person did?" Tommy's eyes filled with tears. "What if he gets scared?" Max, despite his weakness, lifted his head and licked Tommy's hand, as if trying to reassure the boy. Dr. Rodriguez watched this interaction with interest. "That's remarkable. This dog has been severely traumatized, yet he's showing affection toward your son. Usually dogs in this condition are either completely withdrawn or aggressive." Max knows we're helping him, Tommy said with the simple confidence of a child. He knows we're the good guys. As Dr. Rodriguez continued her treatment, she made another discovery. There are old scars here, she said, examining Max's legs and torso. Healed wounds, possibly from combat. This dog has seen action. Walter leaned in for a closer look. Those look like shrapnel scars. This boy's been in a war zone. A hero, dog, Tommy breathed with awe. Max is a hero. Max's ears perked slightly at Tommy's excited tone, though he was growing weaker as the adrenaline of rescue faded. I need to report this, Doctor, Rodriguez said. A military dog with classified credentials abandoned in a storage unit. Someone needs to know. Who would you report it to? Walter asked. I have a contact at the local military base. They have a K9 unit there. They might be able to access his chip information and find out what happened to his handler. Sergeant Marcus Hayes, Lisa supplied. That's who rented the storage unit. Dr. Rodriguez typed the name into her computer. After a few minutes of searching, her face paled. Oh my God. What? Walter demanded. Sergeant Marcus Hayes reported AWOL 6 months ago. There's a military bulletin. He's wanted for questioning in connection with the death of a superior officer. The room fell silent except for the soft beeping of the machines monitoring Max's vitals. So, he's a criminal? Lisa asked, instinctively pulling Tommy closer. We don't know the full story, Walter said carefully. AWOL means absent without leave, and wanted for questioning doesn't mean guilty. But why would he abandon Max? Tommy asked, his young mind struggling to understand how anyone could leave behind such a loyal companion. Maybe he didn't have a choice, Walter suggested, though he couldn't imagine any scenario where he would abandon a partner, human, or canine. Dr. Rodriguez finished setting up Max's treatment. He's stable for now. I'll need to monitor him closely for the next 24 hours. You can visit tomorrow afternoon. Tommy reluctantly let go of Max's paw. You'll take good care of him? The very best, Doctor, Rodriguez promised. And Tommy, you saved his life today. You should be very proud. As they left the clinic, Tommy kept looking back, as if afraid Max would disappear if he looked away for too long. That night, Tommy barely touched his dinner. He pushed his mac and cheese around his plate, his mind clearly elsewhere. Sweetheart, you need to eat, Lisa urged. Do you think Max is eating? Tommy asked. Do you think he's scared without us? Dr. Rodriguez is taking excellent care of him, Lisa assured him, though she was worried about the same things. And the bills. Walter had insisted on paying, but she knew he couldn't afford it any more than they could. Mom, Tommy said quietly, why do bad things happen to good dogs? Lisa didn't have an answer for that. How could she explain human cruelty to a 5-year-old when she didn't understand it herself? Sometimes, Walter said from his seat at their small dining table, people get into situations they can't control. Maybe Sergeant Hayes thought he was protecting Max by hiding him. Maybe he planned to come back. But he didn't, Tommy pointed out with the brutal honesty of childhood. No, Walter agreed, he didn't. That night, Tommy had trouble sleeping. He kept thinking about Max alone in the veterinary clinic, hooked up to machines, probably wondering if his new friends would come back. Finally, around midnight, he padded into his mother's room. Mama? What's wrong, baby? Lisa asked, making room for him in her bed. Can we go see Max first thing tomorrow? Dr. Rodriguez said, afternoon would be better. But what if he thinks we forgot about him? Lisa pulled her son close. Max knows we didn't forget. And you know what? I think Max knows you're thinking about him right now. Really? Really. Now try to get some sleep. But even as Tommy finally drifted off, Lisa lay awake worrying. They couldn't keep Max. That was impossible. But how could she explain that to Tommy, who had already formed such a strong bond with the dog? And what would happen to Max once he recovered? Would he be returned to the military? Put in a shelter? The question swirled in her mind until exhaustion finally claimed her. The next morning brought an unexpected development. Lisa arrived at work to find Mr. Peterson, her supervisor, waiting in the office with 2 men in dark suits. Lisa, these gentlemen are here about Unit 47, Mr. Peterson said, his expression unreadable. One of the men, tall with steel-gray hair, stepped forward. Mrs. Chen, I'm Agent Robert Stone with Military Intelligence. We understand you discovered a military working dog in an abandoned storage unit yesterday. Lisa's mouth went dry. Yes, he was dying. We had to help him. You did the right thing, Agent Stone assured her. We've been looking for that dog. His name is Max, and he's a valuable military asset. Looking for him? Lisa repeated. For how long? 6 months, the other agent, younger with sharp features, replied, since Sergeant Hayes disappeared. If you've been looking for 6 months, how did you not check the storage unit registered in Hayes's name? Walter's voice came from the doorway. He had arrived early, sensing Lisa might need support. Agent Stone's jaw tightened. That's classified information? Classified, Walter scoffed. A dog nearly died because of your classified information. Dad, please, Lisa murmured, though she appreciated his protective presence. Where is the dog now? Agent Stone asked. At the veterinary clinic, receiving treatment for severe malnutrition and dehydration, Lisa replied. We'll need to collect him immediately. He's in critical condition, Walter protested. Moving him could kill him. That's a risk we'll have to assess, Agent Stone said coldly. No! The word came out before Lisa could stop it. Both agents turned to stare at her. Excuse me? Agent Stone's voice carried a warning. I said no. That dog is receiving medical treatment. He's not going anywhere until the veterinarian clears him. Mrs. Chen, you don't seem to understand. This is a military matter. What I understand, Lisa interrupted, finding courage she didn't know she possessed, is that a living creature was left to die in a storage unit while you conducted your classified investigation. My 5-year-old son found him. My 5-year-old son saved him. And now, you want to rip him away? From the only kindness he's known in months? Agent Stone's expression softened slightly. We're not the villains here, Mrs. Chen. We're trying to understand what happened to Sergeant Hayes and why he abandoned a valuable military asset. Maybe, Walter suggested, you should be asking why a good soldier would go AWOL in the first place. In my experience, men don't just abandon their partners without a damn good reason. The younger agent shifted uncomfortably. Sergeant Hayes is wanted for questioning in the death of Lieutenant Colonel James Morrison. Questioning, Walter emphasized. Not charged, not convicted. Questioning. The distinction is irrelevant, Agent Stone said. The dog is military property and needs to be returned. After he's recovered, Lisa insisted, and I want guarantees about what will happen to him. That's not your concern. It is absolutely my concern, Lisa shot back, thinking of Tommy's face when he held Max. That dog has been through trauma. He needs stability, care, and time to heal. If you take him now, you'll either kill him or break whatever spirit he has left. Agent Stone studied her for a long moment. You have 48 hours. After that, we'll be back for the dog. After the agents left, Lisa sank into her desk chair, shaking. You did good, kid, Walter said, squeezing her shoulder. David would be proud. They're going to take Max away, Lisa said, tears threatening. How do I tell Tommy? We'll figure something out, Walter promised, though he had no idea what. That afternoon, when they arrived at the veterinary clinic, they found Max looking marginally better. The IV fluids had helped, and his eyes were clearer, more alert. When he saw Tommy, his tail wagged with more energy than before. Max! Tommy exclaimed, rushing to the dog's side. I missed you so much. I couldn't sleep because I was worried about you. Max licked Tommy's face, his tail continuing to wag despite his weakness. Dr. Rodriguez pulled Lisa and Walter aside. 2 federal agents came by this morning asking about Max. I told them he wasn't stable enough to move. They came to my work too, Lisa said. They're giving us 48 hours. That's not enough time, Doctor, Rodriguez said, frustrated. He needs at least a week of intensive care, then several weeks of recovery. Can you document that? Make it official? Walter asked. I can, but I don't know if they'll care. They seem pretty determined. Lisa watched Tommy reading a picture book to Max, the dog's eyes fixed on the boy, as if he understood every word. There has to be something we can do. That evening, as they were preparing to leave, a woman approached them in the parking lot. She was in her 30s, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and tired eyes. Excuse me, are you the family that found Max? Walter stepped protectively in front of Lisa and Tommy. Who's asking? My name is Rachel Hayes. Marcus Hayes is my brother. Lisa gasped. Your brother abandoned Max in that storage unit. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. No, you don't understand. Marcus would never abandon Max. Never. Something terrible happened, and I think Marcus hid Max to protect him. Protect him from what? Walter asked. Rachel looked around nervously. Can we talk somewhere private? I'll explain everything, but not here, not where they might be watching. They? Lisa asked. The people who framed my brother for murder. The same people who are probably watching you now that you've found Max. Tommy, who had been listening with wide eyes, tugged on his mother's hand. Mama, is Max in danger? Rachel knelt down to Tommy's level. You must be the brave boy who saved Max. My brother would be so grateful. He loves that dog more than anything in the world. Then why did he leave him? Tommy asked. Because sometimes, when we love something very much, we have to hide it to keep it safe, even if it breaks our hearts. Walter made a decision. Follow us to my apartment. We'll talk there. At Walter's modest apartment, Rachel told them a story that seemed too incredible to be true. Marcus had been part of a special K-9 unit stationed at a classified facility. 6 months ago, he had discovered that his commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel Morrison, was selling military weapons and information to foreign buyers. Marcus tried to report it through proper channels, Rachel explained, but Morrison had connections everywhere. Then one night, Morrison confronted Marcus. There was a fight. Morrison pulled a gun, and Max attacked him to protect Marcus. Morrison died from his injuries. So it was self-defense, Walter said. Yes, but there were no witnesses except Max, and Morrison had already painted Marcus as unstable, said he was suffering from PTSD. No one would believe him. But Max saw everything, Tommy said suddenly. Max knows the truth. Rachel smiled sadly at the boy's innocence. Yes, sweetheart, Max knows, and that's why he's in danger. I don't understand, Lisa said. How does that put Max in danger? Rachel pulled out a tablet and showed them a video. Military K-9 units like Max are equipped with special cameras during operations. Everything they see is recorded and stored in their microchip. Max's chip contains the video of what really happened that night. The encrypted chip, Lisa breathed. Dr. Rodriguez said she couldn't access it. Only someone with military clearance can access it, Rachel confirmed. Marcus knew that if the wrong people got to Max first, they'd destroy the evidence and probably kill Max to keep him quiet. So he hid him, Walter concluded. But why the storage unit? Why not with you? They were watching me, watching all of Marcus's known associates. He chose a storage unit he'd rented under an old alias, paid 6 months in advance in cash. He was supposed to come back for Max once he found someone he could trust with the evidence. What happened to him? Lisa asked, though she feared. She already knew. Rachel's voice broke. I don't know. His last message to me was 5 months ago. He said he was close to finding help, someone in military intelligence who wasn't corrupt. Then nothing. He could be dead, Walter said gently. He could be, Rachel agreed, wiping away tears. But I have to believe he's not. Marcus is smart, resourceful. If anyone could stay hidden, it's him. The agents who came today, Lisa said suddenly. Agent Stone, do you know him? Rachel's face went pale. Robert Stone, tall, gray hair, cold eyes. That's him. Oh God, he's Morrison's former partner. They served together for years. If Stone has Max... She trailed off, the implications clear. We can't let them take Max, Tommy said firmly. We have to protect him. Sweetheart, we don't have a choice, Lisa said gently. They're federal agents. But they're bad guys, Tommy protested. Just because someone wears a uniform doesn't make them good. Out of the mouths of babes, Walter thought. There might be a way, Rachel said slowly. I've been in contact with someone, a journalist who's been investigating military corruption. If we could get Max's chip data to her, she could expose everything. But we can't access the chip, Lisa pointed out. I know someone who might be able to help, Rachel said. Another soldier from Marcus's unit who went into hiding after Morrison's death. He has the clearance codes. Where is he? Walter asked. That's the problem. I only have an old contact method. I've been trying to reach him for months. Tommy, who had been quiet for a moment, suddenly spoke up. What if Max knows? What if Max could find him? The adults looked at the boy with surprise. Military dogs are trained to track, right? Tommy continued. Maybe Max could find the soldier. Rachel's eyes lit up. That's actually not impossible. Max worked with several handlers in the unit. He would recognize their scent. But Max can barely walk, Lisa protested. He's in no condition to track anyone. Not now, Walter agreed, but in a few days, with proper care. We don't have a few days, Lisa reminded them. Stone gave us 48 hours. Then we need to stall, Walter said with the determination that had made him an excellent firefighter. Buy more time. How? Lisa asked. Walter smiled grimly. Leave that to me. I spent 30 years dealing with bureaucracy. I know how to make paperwork multiply. The next morning, Walter put his plan into action. He contacted a lawyer friend who specialized in animal welfare cases. Together, they filed for temporary custody of Max, citing his condition and the need for continued medical care. The paperwork would force the federal agents to go through legal channels, buying them precious time. Meanwhile, Lisa took Tommy to visit Max again. The dog was stronger, able to stand for short periods. When he saw Tommy, he attempted to walk to him, his determination evident despite his weakness. Look, Mama, he's getting better, Tommy exclaimed. Dr. Rodriguez was pleased with Max's progress, but cautious. He's responding well to treatment, but he's still fragile. No sudden movements or stress. As Tommy sat with Max, reading him another story, Lisa noticed something odd. A van had been parked across from the clinic since they arrived. She mentioned it to Dr. Rodriguez, who frowned. That van's been there since yesterday. I thought it was construction, but there's no work being done. Lisa felt a chill. Were they being watched already? That afternoon, Rachel arrived with news. I made contact. David Reeves, one of Marcus's unit members. He's been hiding in the mountains about 3 hours from here. He's willing to help, but he won't come to the city. Too dangerous. Can he access Max's chip? Walter asked. Yes, he has the necessary clearance and equipment, but we'd have to bring Max to him. Max isn't strong enough to travel that far, Lisa protested. He will be in a few days, Dr. Rodriguez said, with continued treatment and care. We may not have a few days, Walter said. My lawyer bought us maybe 72 hours max before Stone can legally take Max. Tommy, who had been quietly playing with Max, suddenly spoke up. I'll protect him. The adults turned to look at the small boy, his jaw set with determination. Tommy, sweetheart, you can't protect Max from federal agents, Lisa said gently. Yes, I can, Tommy insisted. Max protected his soldier. Now, I'll protect him. Max, as if understanding, placed his paw on Tommy's small hand. That night, Lisa couldn't sleep. The weight of their situation pressed down on her. They were harboring what the government considered stolen military property. They were planning to help extract classified information. They could all end up in federal prison. But then she thought about Tommy's face when he held Max, about the dog's eyes when he looked at her son, about a soldier named Marcus Hayes, who loved his dog enough to hide him rather than let him be killed for knowing the truth. She made a decision. Picking up her phone, she texted Rachel. We're all in. Whatever it takes to protect Max and clear your brother's name. The response came quickly. Thank you. Marcus would be so grateful. Be ready to move tomorrow night. The next day started normally enough. Lisa went to work, leaving Tommy with Walter. But around noon, everything changed. Mr. Peterson called her into his office, his face grim. Lisa, I'm sorry, but I have to let you go. What? Why? Lisa felt the floor drop out from under her. Orders from corporate. They said you violated company policy by opening a customer's unit without authorization. But there was an animal dying in there. I know, and personally, I think you did the right thing. But corporate doesn't see it that way. They're worried about liability, lawsuits. He handed her an envelope. Your final paycheck, plus 2 weeks severance. It's the best I could do. Lisa left the office. In a daze. No job, no income. How would she support Tommy now? When she got home, she found Walter and Tommy packing supplies. What's going on? Change of plans, Walter said tersely. Stone showed up at the clinic with a court order. Dr. Rodriguez is stalling, but we need to move Max tonight. But he's not ready. He'll have to be. Rachel's contact, Reeves, says Stone has connections everywhere. If we don't move now, we'll lose our chance. Lisa felt overwhelmed. Walter, I just lost my job. I can't... Hey, Walter said, grasping her shoulders. We're family. We'll figure out the job situation later. Right now, we need to save that dog and expose the truth. Tommy appeared with his backpack stuffed with supplies. I packed Max's toys and blankets from Grandpa's garage. So, he won't be scared. Lisa's heart ached with love for her brave little boy. Okay, she said. Let's do this. That evening, under cover of darkness, they executed their plan. Dr. Rodriguez had officially discharged Max to a specialist facility for continued treatment, creating a paper trail that would take Stone time to unravel. In reality, she drove Max to a rendezvous point where Walter waited with his truck. Max was weak but alert, seeming to sense the urgency of the situation. He allowed Walter to lift him into the truck bed, where Tommy had created a nest of blankets. I'll ride with him, Tommy insisted. It's not safe, Lisa began. Please, Mama, he needs me. Looking at Max, who was already resting his head on Tommy's lap, Lisa relented. Okay, but you hold on tight. The drive to the mountains was tense. Every set of headlights made them nervous. Rachel drove ahead in her car, watching for any signs of pursuit. The road grew narrower and more winding as they climbed into the hills. Finally, after 3 hours, they turned onto a dirt road that led to a small cabin. A man emerged, rifle in hand, until he recognized Rachel. David, Rachel called. It's okay. These are the people I told you about. David Reeves was not what Lisa expected. Thin and haunted-looking, with the hypervigilant movements of someone constantly expecting attack. But when he saw Max, his entire demeanor changed. Max, buddy, he said softly, kneeling as Walter carried the dog inside. What did they do to you? Max's tail wagged weakly in recognition. You know him, Tommy said excitedly. Yeah, kid. Max and I served together. He saved my life more than once. David's voice was thick with emotion. Inside the cabin, David had set up sophisticated computer equipment, powered by a generator. Let me scan his chip, he said, producing a military-grade scanner. As the device read Max's chip, data began flowing across the computer screens. Video files, audio recordings, documents. There, David breathed. There it is. They watched in silence as the video played. It showed Lieutenant Colonel Morrison confronting Marcus Hayes in an empty warehouse. The audio was clear. You should have minded your own business, Hayes. You're selling weapons to terrorists. American soldiers are dying because of you. And you're going to join them. The video showed Morrison pulling a gun, Marcus trying to defend himself, and Max launching himself at Morrison. It was clearly self-defense. This proves Marcus is innocent, Rachel said, tears streaming down her face. It proves more than that, David said, scrolling through other files. Morrison's entire network is documented here. Stone is implicated. Several high-ranking officials. This is huge. We need to get this to your journalist contact, Walter said. Already uploading to a secure server, David confirmed. But we have a problem. What problem? Lisa asked, though she dreaded the answer. David turned his laptop screen toward them. It showed a news alert. Federal manhunt underway for family who stole classified military asset. Their photos were on the screen. Lisa, Walter, even little Tommy. They're framing us, Walter said grimly. Mom, are we in trouble? Tommy asked, his voice small. Before Lisa could answer, Max suddenly struggled to his feet, growling low in his throat. His ears were pricked, his body tense despite his weakness. Someone's coming, David said, grabbing his rifle. Max always knows. Headlights swept across the windows, multiple vehicles. They found us, Rachel whispered. Take Max and the kid out the back, David ordered. There's a trail that leads to an old ranger station. I'll buy you time. We're not leaving you, Walter began. Go! Now! Protect the evidence. Walter scooped up Max while Lisa grabbed Tommy's hand. They slipped out the back door just as the front exploded inward. Federal agents! Nobody move! They ran into the darkness, Max whimpering in Walter's arms but not struggling. Behind them, they heard shouting, then gunshots. David! Rachel cried out, starting to turn back. Keep moving, Walter commanded. They stumbled through the woods, branches tearing at their clothes. Tommy was crying now, terrified, but he kept running, his small hand gripped tightly in his mother's. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, they found the ranger station David had mentioned. It was abandoned, windows broken, but it provided shelter. Walter gently set Max down, and the dog immediately moved to Tommy, pressing against the frightened boy. "It's okay," Tommy whispered to Max, though he was clearly trying to convince himself. "We're okay." "We need to contact that journalist," Lisa said. "Get the story out before they spin this their way." Rachel pulled out her phone, hands shaking. "No signal. They'll be tracking our phones anyway," Walter pointed out. "We need to think." Max suddenly lifted his head, his ears swiveling. Then, to everyone's surprise, he stood and limped to the door, scratching at it. "What is it, boy?" Walter asked. Max looked back at them, then at the door again, whining. "He wants us to follow him," Tommy said. "Tommy, Max can barely walk." But Max was already pushing through the broken door, moving with purpose despite his injuries. They followed, having no better option. Max led them through the woods, stopping frequently to rest, but always continuing in the same direction. Dawn was breaking when they emerged at a road where an old pickup truck sat parked. A figure stepped out from behind it, hands raised. "Don't shoot! I'm here to help." It was Marcus Hayes. Rachel gasped. "Marcus? You're alive!" Marcus was thin, bearded, clearly exhausted, but alive. His eyes were fixed on Max, who was wagging his tail so hard his whole body shook. "Hey, partner," Marcus said, his voice breaking. Max limped forward, and Marcus dropped to his knees, gathering the dog in his arms. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I left you." Max licked Marcus's face, whimpering with joy. "How did you find us?" Walter asked, still suspicious. "I've been tracking Stone's movements for weeks," Marcus explained. "When I heard about a family finding Max, I knew Stone would make his move. I've been following you, waiting for the right moment." "We have the evidence," Rachel said. "David extracted it from Max's chip." Marcus's face darkened. "David? Is he—" "We don't know," Walter admitted. "There were gunshots." Marcus stood, his jaw set with determination. "Then we need to move fast. Stone won't stop until he buries this evidence and everyone who's seen it." "Including a 5-year-old boy?" Lisa asked, pulling Tommy closer. Marcus's expression softened as he looked at Tommy. "You're the one who saved Max." Tommy nodded, suddenly shy. Marcus knelt down to Tommy's level. "Thank you. You saved my best friend when I couldn't. That makes you a hero in my book." "Max is the hero," Tommy said. "He protected everyone." "You're right," Marcus agreed. "But even heroes need someone to save them sometimes." "We need to get somewhere public," Walter said. "Somewhere Stone can't just make us disappear." "I know a place," Marcus said. "A news station in the city. The reporter there has been investigating military corruption. If we can get to her with the evidence." "They'll be watching the roads," Lisa pointed out. "Not all of them," Marcus said with a slight smile. "I've been living off the grid for 6 months. I know every back road and trail in this area." They piled into Marcus's truck, Lisa and Tommy in the cab with Marcus, Walter and Rachel in the bed with Max, who refused to leave Marcus's sight even for the drive. As they drove, Marcus told them his story. After Morrison's death, he'd tried to report the truth, but found corruption at every level. Stone had framed him, painted him as a mentally unstable soldier who'd snapped and killed his superior officer. "I knew they'd kill Max to destroy the evidence," Marcus said. "So I hid him where I thought he'd be safe until I could come back. I paid the storage unit for 6 months, left food and water." His voice broke. "I thought I'd be back in a few weeks at most." "What happened?" Lisa asked. "Stone's men nearly caught me. I've been running ever since, trying to find someone in authority who wasn't bought. Then I heard about you finding Max. I knew it was my chance. Tommy had been quiet, but now he spoke up. Max never gave up on you. Even when he was really sick, he was waiting." Marcus glanced at the boy, tears in his eyes. "Dogs are like that. More loyal than most humans deserve." They drove for 2 hours, taking back roads and old logging trails. Twice they had to stop and hide when helicopters passed overhead. Max, despite his weakness, remained alert, often warning them of danger before they could see or hear it. Finally, they reached the outskirts of the city. Marcus pulled into the parking garage of a large news station. "I called ahead," he said. "The reporter, Susan Martinez, is waiting." They made their way to the newsroom, Max limping but determined to walk on his own. Susan Martinez was a sharp-looking woman in her 40s who immediately focused on Max. "So this is the dog with the evidence that could expose one of the biggest military corruption scandals in decades," she said. "The evidence has already been uploaded to secure servers," Rachel said, "but we need your help to make it public before they bury it, and us." Susan nodded. "We can go live in an hour, but I need to verify the authenticity of the evidence first." As she reviewed the files, her expression grew increasingly shocked. This is enormous. Stone, Morrison, at least a dozen high-ranking officials, weapons sales, money laundering, murder. And they framed an innocent soldier and tried to kill his dog to cover it up, Walter added. Max, as if understanding he was being discussed, moved to stand beside Marcus, leaning against his leg. "We'll need you on camera," Susan told Marcus. "Your story, with Max beside you, will be powerful." "What about them?" Marcus asked, indicating Lisa, Tommy, and Walter. "They risked everything to save Max. Stone will come after them. We'll protect their identities initially," Susan promised. "Focus on you and Max." As the crew set up for the broadcast, Tommy approached Marcus and Max. "Will Max stay with you now?" he asked, trying to be brave about the prospect of losing his friend. Marcus looked at the boy, then at Max, who was gazing at Tommy with obvious affection. "You know," Marcus said slowly, "Max is going to need a lot of care while he recovers. And I'm going to be dealing with legal issues, clearing my name, testifying. Maybe Max could stay with you for a while, if your mom agrees." Tommy's face lit up. "Really?" Lisa started to protest. "We don't have a place for a dog. We can barely afford." "I'll cover all his expenses," Marcus said quickly. "Food, vet bills, everything. You saved him when I couldn't. Please, let me do this." "Please, Mama?" Tommy begged. Looking at her son's hopeful face and Max's trusting eyes, Lisa felt her resistance crumble. "We'll have to find a new apartment that allows pets." "I know a place," Walter said. "Veteran who owns a building, gives good rates to families in need. He'll understand about Max." "Then yes," Lisa said, and Tommy threw his arms around her. "You hear that, Max? You get to stay with us." Max's tail wagged, and he licked Tommy's face. The broadcast went live at noon. Susan Martinez presented the evidence methodically, showing the videos, the documents, the clear proof of corruption and murder. Marcus told his story, Max beside him the entire time, a powerful image of loyalty and sacrifice. Within minutes, the story went viral. Other news stations picked it up. Social media exploded with outrage over the treatment of both Marcus and Max. By evening, Stone and several others had been arrested. The Department of Defense announced a full investigation. Marcus was cleared of all charges. But the best moment came when they returned to Dr. Rodriguez's clinic for Max's follow-up appointment. She examined him thoroughly, amazed at his recovery. "He's going to be fine," she announced. "He'll need continued care and physical therapy, but he's going to make a full recovery." Tommy hugged Max carefully. "I knew you were strong enough." That night, in their new apartment that Walter had helped them secure, Max lay on a proper dog bed beside Tommy's bed. Lisa watched from the doorway as Tommy read Max a bedtime story. "And the brave dog and the little boy became best friends forever," Tommy concluded. "The end?" Max's tail thumped against the floor in approval. "Mom," Tommy called, "can Max sleep on my bed? Just for tonight?" Lisa knew it wouldn't be just for tonight, but seeing the hope in both Tommy's and Max's eyes, she nodded. "Just this once." As Max carefully climbed onto the bed, curling up beside Tommy, Lisa felt tears prick her eyes. They had lost so much: David's death, her job, their sense of security. But they had gained something too, a larger family, a purpose, and proof that sometimes doing the right thing, no matter how hard, was worth it. Walter appeared beside her. "You did good, kid. David would be so proud of you both." "Thanks, Dad," Lisa said, leaning against him. "That dog's going to be spoiled rotten," Walter observed, watching Tommy and Max settle in for the night. "Probably," Lisa agreed. "But after everything he's been through, I think he deserves it." From the bed, Max looked at them, his brown eyes warm with contentment. Then he rested his head on Tommy's shoulder and closed his eyes, finally home, finally safe, finally loved. The story could have ended there, but life had more surprises in store. Copy okay, now write section 2 of 13,000 words, but don't edit the story as we have to cover the next, in section 3. The weeks that followed brought unexpected challenges and revelations that would test their newfound family bonds. Max's recovery progressed steadily, but with it came behaviors that puzzled everyone. He would wake in the middle of the night, pacing the apartment, stopping at windows to stare into the darkness. Sometimes he would growl at seemingly empty spaces, his hackles raised, protecting Tommy even from invisible threats. "It's PTSD," Marcus explained during one of his visits. He came by every few days to check on Max and help with his physical therapy. Military dogs experience trauma just like human soldiers. Max has seen things, done things in service that leave scars you can't see. Tommy, wise beyond his 5 years, would simply get up whenever Max had these episodes, sitting beside him on the floor, humming the same lullaby his father used to sing. It always calmed Max down, bringing him back from whatever dark memories haunted him. Lisa had found a new job at a local bookstore, though the pay was less than her previous position. The owner, Mrs. Catherine Phillips, was a widow who understood struggle and had hired Lisa on the spot when she heard their story. "Anyone who risks everything to save an innocent life is someone I want working here," she had said simply. The bookstore turned out to be perfect. Mrs. Phillips allowed Tommy to bring Max after school, and the dog became a fixture in the children's section, lying patiently while kids read stories aloud to him. It was therapeutic for everyone involved, especially Max, who seemed to find peace in the innocent voices of children. But 3 weeks after the broadcast that exposed the corruption, strange things began happening. It started small. Their mail would arrive opened and resealed. Unusual clicks on their phone line, the same car parked across from their building for days at a time. "We're being watched," Walter said during Sunday dinner at Lisa's apartment. He had noticed the surveillance too, his firefighter's instincts for danger still sharp. "But Stone is in custody," Lisa protested, though she had felt the unsettling presence herself. "Stone wasn't working alone," Marcus said grimly. He had joined them for dinner, as had become his habit. "The investigation has revealed a network that goes deeper than anyone imagined. Some of those involved are still out there." Tommy looked up from where he was feeding Max small pieces of chicken under the table. "Are the bad people coming back?" The adults exchanged glances. They had tried to shield Tommy from the ongoing danger, but the boy was too perceptive. "We're being careful," Marcus assured him. "And Max is here. He won't let anything happen to you." As if to prove the point, Max moved closer to Tommy's chair, his body positioned protectively. That night, after Tommy had gone to bed with Max curled beside him, the adults gathered in the living room to discuss their concerns. "I've been in touch with Susan Martinez," Rachel said. She had become their liaison with the media, managing the story that continued to make headlines. "She says there's been chatter about retaliation. Some of Morrison's associates who weren't arrested are angry about the exposure." "We need protection," Walter stated flatly. "The FBI has offered witness protection," Marcus said. "But that would mean relocating, new identities, leaving everything behind." Lisa shook her head immediately. "I can't uproot Tommy again. He's been through enough. And Max is just starting to settle." "Then we need another solution," Walter said. The solution came from an unexpected source. The next day, while Tommy was at school and Lisa was at work, Walter received a visitor at his apartment. The man was in his 60s, walked with a slight limp, and had the bearing of someone who had seen too much. "Mr. Chen? My name is Colonel Samuel Richards, retired. I served with Marcus Hayes' father in Vietnam." Walter invited him in, cautiously. "What can I do for you, Colonel?" "It's what I can do for you," Richards said. "I've been following what happened to Marcus and Max. What your family did was heroic, but I know you're in danger." "How do you know that?" Richards smiled grimly. "I still have contacts in the intelligence community. The good ones, not the corrupt ones Stone was involved with. There's a contract out on your family." Walter's blood ran cold. "A contract? You mean someone wants you silenced?" "Yes. Not killed necessarily, but scared enough to disappear, to stop talking to the media." "Who?" "A man named Vincent Carlisle. He was Morrison's silent partner, the money man. He escaped the initial arrests because there wasn't enough evidence linking him directly. But your continued media presence is bad for his business. What kind of business? Walter asked, though he suspected he knew. Arms dealing, but the sophisticated kind. He provides weapons to anyone willing to pay, hides behind shell companies and legitimate businesses. Morrison was his inside man in the military. Walter processed this information. Why are you telling me this? Because I owe Marcus's father a debt I can never repay. He saved my life in Vietnam, took a bullet meant for me, died in my arms. Richard's voice was heavy with old grief. I couldn't save him, but I can help save his son and the family protecting him. How? Richards pulled out a card. I run a private security firm now, all veterans, all trustworthy. I'd like to provide protection for your family, no charge. We can't accept charity. It's not charity, Richards interrupted. It's payment on an old debt, and frankly, I'm disgusted by what Stone and Morrison did, using military positions for personal gain, trying to kill a service dog to cover their crimes. It goes against everything we stood for. Walter studied the older man's face, seeing sincerity there. I'll need to discuss this with my family. Of course. But Mr. Chen, don't wait too long. Carlyle is not a patient man. That afternoon, Walter picked up Tommy from school as usual, but he noticed Max behaving strangely in the car. The dog kept turning to look out the back window, a low growl rumbling in his chest. What's wrong, Max? Tommy asked, concerned. Walter checked his mirrors and spotted it, a black sedan following them, maintaining perfect distance through every turn. Tommy, I need you to do exactly what I say, Walter said calmly. Get down on the floor and hold on to Max. Grandpa, what's happening? Just do it, buddy, now. Tommy obeyed immediately, and Max positioned himself over the boy protectively. Walter took a sharp right turn, then another, the sedan staying with them. He pulled out his phone and called Marcus. We have a tail. Black sedan, 2 occupants. I've got Tommy with me. Where are you? Marcus's voice was tense. Heading east on Maple, about to turn onto 3rd. Don't go home. Head to the police station. I'll meet you there. Walter made another turn, and suddenly the sedan accelerated, pulling alongside them. The passenger window rolled down, and Walter saw the glint of metal. Hold on, he shouted, slamming on the brakes. The sedan shot past them, the gunman's shot going wide. Walter threw the truck in reverse, tires squealing, then spun around and headed in the opposite direction. Behind them, he heard the sedan's tires screech as it tried to turn around. Max was barking now, his body still shielding Tommy, who was crying with fear. It's okay, buddy. We're okay, Walter said, though his heart was racing. He took several more evasive turns, his old emergency driving training from the fire department coming back. Finally, he pulled into the police station parking lot, where Marcus was already waiting with several officers. The black sedan was nowhere to be seen. Are you hurt? Marcus asked, yanking open the door. We're fine, Walter said, though his hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was wearing off. Tommy emerged from the floor of the truck, his face pale and tear-streaked. Max jumped down after him, immediately positioning himself between the boy and the parking lot, scanning for threats. They tried to shoot us, Tommy said in a small voice. Marcus knelt beside him. But your grandpa protected you. And Max protected you. You're safe now. Are they going to keep trying? Marcus looked at Walter over Tommy's head. They both knew the answer was yes. That evening, they held an emergency family meeting. Colonel Richards attended at Walter's invitation, laying out his security proposal. I can have 2 men on rotation, watching your building at night, following Tommy to and from school. They'll be discreet. You won't even know they are there unless needed. For how long? Lisa asked. Until Carlyle is caught or backs off, Richards replied honestly. That could be months, years even, Rachel pointed out. The alternative is witness protection, Marcus said. New lives, new names, no contact with anyone from your past. Lisa looked at Tommy, who was sitting on the floor with Max, arms wrapped around the dog's neck. They had both been through so much already. We accept your offer, Colonel, she said finally, and thank you. Richards nodded. The first team will be in place tonight. Their names are Jake Torres and Mike Patterson, both former Special Forces. They know how to handle situations like what happened today. As the meeting broke up, Tommy approached Colonel Richards. "Sir, will your men protect Max too?" Richard smiled, the first genuine warmth he'd shown. "Especially Max, son. He's a genuine war hero. It would be an honor to protect him." That night, Lisa couldn't sleep. She stood at her bedroom window, looking out at the street below. Sure enough, there was a subtle presence. A car parked where it could observe both the building entrance and the alley. She felt both safer and more trapped. A soft knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Tommy stood there in his dinosaur pajamas, Max beside him. "Can't sleep, baby?" Tommy shook his head. "Max is worried." Lisa looked at the dog, who did indeed seem agitated, his ears constantly moving, tracking sounds only he could hear. "Come here," she said, leading them both to the living room couch. They sat together, Tommy curled against her side, Max lying across both their laps despite being far too big for it. "Mom, why do bad people want to hurt us?" "We didn't do anything wrong." Lisa struggled to find words a 5-year-old could understand. "Sometimes, when people do bad things and get caught, they get angry at the people who caught them. But we just saved Max. We didn't mean to catch anyone." "I know, baby." But saving Max led to the truth coming out, and some people didn't want that truth known. Tommy was quiet for a moment, absently stroking Max's fur. "Dad would have saved Max too, wouldn't he?" Lisa's throat tightened. "Yes, he would have. Your dad always helped those who needed it." "Then we did the right thing." "Yes, we did. Even if it's scary now?" Lisa hugged him tighter. "Especially because it's scary. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing the right thing even when you are scared." Max suddenly lifted his head, his body tensing. A moment later, there was a soft knock at their door. Lisa's heart raced. "Mrs. Chen? It's Jake Torres, Colonel Richard's security. There's someone here who says he needs to speak with you urgently." Lisa approached the door cautiously, looking through the peephole. She could see Torres, a muscular man in his 30s, and beside him, David Reeves. She opened the door quickly. "David, we thought you were dead." So did Stone's men. David looked terrible, thin, bruised, his left arm in a sling. "I've been in hiding, recovering. But I have information you need to hear." Lisa let him in, and Max immediately went to him, tail wagging in recognition. "Hey, boy," David said, painfully lowering himself to pet Max. "Good to see you, too." "What information?" Lisa asked. David looked at Tommy, then back at Lisa. "Maybe the boy should—" "Tommy stays," Lisa said firmly. "This affects him, too." David nodded. "Carlisle isn't just trying to silence you. He's looking for something Morrison hid before he died." "What kind of something?" "A ledger. Physical documentation of every illegal transaction, every bribe, every murder. Morrison kept it as insurance, hidden somewhere. Carlisle thinks Marcus knows where it is." "But Marcus doesn't know," Lisa said. "No, but Carlisle thinks Max might." They all looked at the German shepherd, who was now lying at Tommy's feet. "That's ridiculous," Lisa said. "How would a dog know where something is hidden?" "Military dogs are trained to find all sorts of things," David explained. "And Max was Morrison's dog before he was assigned to Marcus. If Morrison used Max to hide the ledger, the dog would remember the location." "So, they want Max alive?" Walter asked, having arrived after getting David's message. "For now, but once they have what they want." He didn't need to finish. They all understood. "We need to find it first," Marcus said decisively. He had arrived with Walter, looking grim. "If Max knows where it is, we need to figure it out before Carlisle does." "How do we do that?" Lisa asked. "We start with Morrison's usual spots," Marcus said. "His office, his quarters, places he frequented with Max. Most of those are on the military base," David pointed out. "We can't just walk in there." "I can," Colonel Richards said from the doorway. Torres had called him when David arrived. "I still have clearance, and I can bring guests for legitimate purposes." "It's too dangerous," Lisa protested. "Mom," Tommy said quietly, "Max wants to help. Look at him." They all turned to see Max sitting at attention, his posture military perfect, his eyes alert and focused on Marcus. "He knows we're talking about a mission," Marcus said with wonder. "Even after everything, he's ready to work." "Then we go tomorrow," Richards decided. "The longer we wait, the more time Carlisle has to make his own moves." That night, Tommy couldn't sleep again, but this time it was from excitement rather than fear. He whispered to Max in the darkness, "Tomorrow you get to be a real military dog again. You get to go on a mission." Max's tail thumped softly against the bed. "I'll help you," Tommy promised. "We're a team, right?" Max licked his face in agreement. The next morning came gray and drizzly. Perfect weather for what felt like a covert operation. Colonel Richards arrived in a black SUV with government plates, Jake Torres driving. "Only Marcus and I can go onto the base," Richards explained, "but we'll have communication with you the entire time." He handed Lisa an earpiece. "You'll hear everything. If Max reacts to something, Marcus will describe it." They drove to Fort Harrison, the military base 20 miles outside the city. Lisa, Tommy, Walter, and Max waited in a visitor's area while Marcus and Richards went through security. "Morrison's old office has been cleared out," Richards reported through the earpiece. "But we're getting permission to walk through with Max, see if he alerts to anything." After what felt like hours but was probably 30 minutes, Marcus returned for Max. "You ready to work, boy?" he asked. Max immediately stood, his entire demeanor changing from pet to soldier. Tommy hugged him. "Be careful, Max." As they watched Marcus lead Max into the building, Lisa held Tommy's hand tightly. Through the earpiece, they heard Marcus's voice. "We're in Morrison's old office. Max is searching. Wait, he's interested in something." There was rustling, then. "He's pawing at a ventilation grate. It's been recently disturbed, the screws are loose." More sounds of movement. "Got it," Richard's voice came through. "There's a USB drive hidden inside." Lisa felt a surge of hope. Could it be that simple? But then Marcus's voice, tense. "We have company. Carlisle's men are here. They must have been watching the base." "Get out," Richards commanded. "Now." Through the earpiece they heard rapid footsteps, Max barking, then the connection cut out. "Mom, what's happening?" Tommy asked, fear in his voice. "I don't know, baby." Agonizing minutes passed before Marcus and Richards appeared, running toward the car with Max between them. Behind them, Lisa could see security forces confronting several men in suits. "Go, go, go!" Richards shouted as they dove into the SUV. Torres peeled out, the tires squealing. Max was panting in the back, but his tail was wagging, the successful completion of a mission. "Did you get it?" Lisa asked. Marcus held up a USB drive. "We got something. Whether it's the ledger or not, we'll have to see." They drove to a safe house Richards had arranged, a nondescript apartment in a quiet neighborhood. Once inside, Marcus plugged the USB into a laptop. Files opened across the screen. Financial records, correspondence, photographs. It was damning evidence, but not the complete ledger David had described. "It's part of it," David said, studying the files. "But not everything. Morrison must have split it up." Max suddenly stood and walked to Tommy, dropping something at his feet. It was another USB drive, this one covered in dust. "Max!" Tommy exclaimed. "Where did you get this?" Marcus's eyes widened. "He must have grabbed it from another hiding spot in the office. I didn't even see him do it." This USB contained more files, including a video message from Morrison himself, recorded days before his death. "If you're watching this," Morrison's image said, "then I'm probably dead. The complete records of our operation are hidden in 3 locations. The dog knows them all. Follow the dog." 3 locations, Walter said. "We have 2 USBs, which means there's one more out there," Marcus concluded. "And Carlisle knows it too now," Richards added grimly. His men saw Max retrieve something. They'll intensify their efforts. Tommy, who had been quietly thinking, suddenly spoke up. "Max knows where the 3rd one is, but he's waiting." "Waiting for what?" Lisa asked. "For the right time. That's what military dogs do." "Right? They wait for the right moment?" Marcus looked at the boy with amazement. "You're absolutely right. Max is tactical. He won't reveal the last location until he thinks it's safe." Over the next few days, they maintained a tense routine. Tommy went to school with discreet security. Lisa worked at the bookstore with Max beside her, and they all gathered each evening to discuss their next moves. Susan Martinez, the reporter, published stories based on the files they had found, keeping public pressure on the investigation. But Carlisle remained free, his lawyers fighting every attempt to link him to the crimes. Then, one afternoon at the bookstore, something changed. Max, who had been lying peacefully in the children's section, suddenly stood and walked to Tommy, who was doing homework at a small table. The dog took the boy's sleeve gently in his teeth and tugged. "Max wants to show me something," Tommy told his mother. Max led them to the history section of the bookstore, stopping at a particular shelf. He sat and stared at one book in particular, a military history of K-9 units. "Mrs. Phillips," Lisa called to the owner, "has anyone been interested in this book recently?" The elderly woman thought for a moment. "Actually, yes. A man came in last week, very interested in that exact book. He didn't buy it, just thumbed through it and left. I thought it was odd." Lisa's blood ran cold. She carefully pulled out the book and opened it. Tucked inside the spine was a third USB drive. "Morrison must have hidden it here," she breathed. "But how did Max know?" "The scent," Marcus said when they called him. "Morrison's scent would still be on it. Max tracked it." "But that means Carlisle knows about this location too," Walter pointed out. "The man who came in last week was probably one of Carlisle's scouts," Marcus finished. "They're closing in." That night, they gathered at Lisa's apartment to review the contents of the third USB. This one contained the mother lode, videos of meetings, recorded conversations, bank transfers, even murder plans. Carlisle was clearly visible in several videos, directly ordering killings. "This is it," Rachel said excitedly. "This is enough to put him away forever." But their celebration was short-lived. Max suddenly began barking, his hackles raised, facing the apartment door. "Someone's coming," Walter said, grabbing a baseball bat he'd started keeping nearby. The doorknob rattled. Then, with a splintering crash, the door burst open. 3 men entered, guns drawn. "Nobody move," the lead man ordered. "We're here for the USBS and the dog." Max lunged forward, but Marcus grabbed his collar, holding him back. "You must be Carlisle's men," Marcus said calmly. "Smart soldier. Now, hand over the drives." "Mom," Tommy whispered, but Lisa squeezed his hand, signaling him to stay quiet. What happened next occurred so fast that Lisa could barely process it. Max suddenly twisted free from Marcus's grip, but instead of attacking the intruders, he ran to Tommy, grabbed something from the boy's backpack, and dove out the open window onto the fire escape. "The drives!" one of the men shouted. "The dog has the drives!" They rushed to the window, but Max was already climbing up to the roof. "Go after him!" the leader ordered. As 2 men climbed out onto the fire escape, the apartment door burst open again. Jake Torres and Mike Patterson entered, weapons drawn. "Federal agents! Drop your weapons!" A firefight erupted. Lisa threw herself over Tommy, pulling him behind the couch. She could hear gunshots, breaking glass, men shouting. Then, as suddenly as it started, it was over. "Clear!" Torres called out. Lisa emerged to find the 3 intruders on the ground, 2 unconscious, 1 in handcuffs. Marcus was already heading for the window. "Max is on the roof," he said. "I'm going after him." "I'm coming too," Tommy said, breaking free from his mother's grip. "Tommy, no!" Lisa called, but the boy was already following Marcus up the fire escape. On the roof, they found Max standing at the edge, the USB drives in his mouth, facing a 4th man, Vincent Carlisle himself. "Give me the drives, dog," Carlisle said, pointing a gun at Max. "Or I start shooting people, starting with the boy." Tommy stepped forward before Marcus could stop him. "Max won't give them to you. He's too smart. He knows you're bad." Carlisle laughed coldly. "Bad? I'm a businessman, kid. This is just business." "No," Tommy said, his voice steady despite his fear. "You're a bully. And Max doesn't like bullies." Max growled in agreement, the USBS still firmly in his jaws. "Last chance," Carlisle said, cocking his gun. What happened next would be debated for years. Some say Max simply followed his training. Others believed he made a conscious choice. But everyone agreed on what they saw. Max dropped the USBS at Tommy's feet, then launched himself at Carlisle with all the force his recovering body could muster. The gun went off, the bullet going wide as Carlisle fell backward under 90 pounds of determined German shepherd. Carlisle screamed as Max pinned him, the dog's teeth inches from his throat, not biting, but making it clear he could. "Max, hold!" Marcus commanded, and Max obeyed, keeping Carlisle immobilized until Torres and Patterson arrived to make the arrest. As they led Carlisle away, he looked back at Tommy and Max with pure hatred. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is," Colonel Richards said, appearing on the roof with FBI agents. "Vincent Carlisle, you're under arrest for conspiracy, murder, arms trafficking, and about 30 other charges. You're done." Tommy knelt beside Max, who was panting heavily from the exertion. "You saved us again." Max licked his face, tail wagging weakly. "He's hurt," Marcus said suddenly, noticing blood on Max's side. "The gunshot, he was hit." They rushed Max to Dr. Rodriguez's clinic, where she immediately went to work. The bullet had grazed his side, tearing muscle, but missing vital organs. "He'll be fine," she assured them after surgery. "But he needs rest. Real rest this time. No more heroics for a while." As Max recovered, the full impact of what they had uncovered became clear. The USBs contained evidence implicating dozens of people in a massive corruption ring. The FBI made arrests across the country. The story dominated the news for weeks. Susan Martinez won a Pulitzer Prize for her reporting. Marcus was fully exonerated and offered his choice of positions in the military. He chose to retire instead, opening a training facility for service dogs. But the biggest change came a month later, when an official ceremony was held at City Hall. Max was to receive a Civilian Service Medal for his role in exposing the corruption and protecting citizens. Tommy wore his best clothes, standing proudly beside Max, who wore his military vest for the occasion. The mayor herself presented the medal. "This remarkable dog represents the best of service and loyalty," she said, "and this young boy represents the best of humanity, the courage to help those in need, regardless of the risk." As cameras flashed and people applauded, Max looked at Tommy, and Tommy looked at Max. No words were needed between them. They were family now, bonded by something stronger than blood, shared courage, mutual trust, and unconditional love. After the ceremony, Carlisle's lawyer approached them. Lisa instinctively pulled Tommy closer, but the lawyer raised his hands peacefully. "I'm here to deliver a message from my client's estate," he said. "Estate?" Marcus asked. "Vincent Carlisle took his own life in federal custody last night," the lawyer said without emotion. "But before he died, he transferred ownership of several properties to your son." Mrs. Chen Lisa was stunned. "What? Why?" The lawyer handed her an envelope. Inside was a deed to a large house with a big yard, and a letter in Carlisle's handwriting. The boy was right. I was a bully. But even bullies can recognize true courage. The boy and the dog showed more bravery than I ever possessed. This is my only way to make amends. The house is yours, free and clear. Let the dog have the yard he deserves. They stood in shocked silence. "It's probably bought with blood money," Walter said grimly. "Then we'll use it to do good," Lisa said firmly. "We'll make it a place of healing, not hurt." Tommy looked up at her. "Can we really keep it, Mom?" Lisa looked at Max, who was leaning against Tommy's leg, then at Marcus, Rachel, Walter, and all the others who had become their extended family through this ordeal. "Yes," she said, "we can keep it. We'll make it a home for all of us." The house turned out to be perfect. 6 bedrooms, a huge yard, and even a guest house where Walter could live while maintaining his independence. Marcus and Rachel became regular visitors, and the yard became a training ground where Marcus worked with Max and other service dogs. But the most remarkable development came 6 months later. They received a letter from a military hospital in Germany. It was from Sergeant Marcus Hayes, not their Marcus, but another soldier with the same name who had been Morrison's driver. "I've been in a coma for 7 months, the letter read. "Morrison tried to kill me when I discovered his crimes. I've been recovering here under an assumed name for my protection. I heard about what you did for Max, how you exposed the truth. Thank you. Max was my friend too, and knowing he's safe and loved helps me heal." Tommy insisted on writing back immediately, telling the soldier about all of Max's adventures and how brave he'd been. They began a correspondence that would last years, the soldier eventually visiting them when he was well enough to travel. One evening, as they sat in the backyard of their new home, Tommy asked a question that had been bothering him. "Mom, do you think Dad would be proud of us?" Lisa looked at her son, playing with Max in the grass, surrounded by people who loved them. "I think," she said softly, "he would be amazed at how brave you've been." And he would love Max. I wish he could have met him, Tommy said wistfully. Walter, who was grilling hamburgers nearby, spoke up. You know, Tommy, I think in a way, your dad did meet Max. Every time you showed kindness to Max, every time you were brave, that was your dad's spirit living on in you. Tommy considered this, then smiled. So Dad helped save Max too? Yes, Lisa said, tears in her eyes. He did. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Max came to lie at Tommy's feet, his recovery complete, his spirit unbroken. The journey that had started with a desperate whimper in a storage unit had led them all to this moment of peace and belonging. But even in this tranquility, Max remained alert, always watching, always ready to protect his family, because that's what heroes do. They guard what they love, no matter the cost. The local news did a follow-up story on the anniversary of Max's rescue. They interviewed Tommy, now 6 years old, and more articulate about their experience. Max taught me that being scared is okay, Tommy told the reporter, but letting fear stop you from helping someone is not okay. Max was scared in that storage unit, but he kept fighting, and when we were in danger, he protected us even though he was hurt. What would you say to other kids who might find an animal in trouble? The reporter asked. Tommy looked directly at the camera. Tell an adult you trust and don't give up. Every life matters, even if it's just a dog. Except Max isn't just a dog, he's family. The interview went viral, inspiring countless acts of animal rescue across the country. Letters poured in from children who had helped animals because of Tommy and Max's story. One letter particularly touched them. It was from a young girl in Texas who had found a cat locked in a hot car and had insisted her parents help, citing Tommy's bravery as her inspiration. We should visit them, Tommy suggested. Max and I could show them they did the right thing. This gave Lisa an idea. With Marcus's help, they established the Max Foundation, dedicated to educating children about animal welfare and providing resources for animal rescue. Max became the foundation's ambassador, visiting schools with Tommy to share their story. During one school visit, a shy boy in the back raised his hand. Were you ever sorry you saved Max? Since it caused so much trouble? Tommy didn't hesitate. Never. The trouble wasn't because we saved Max. The trouble was because bad people were doing bad things. We just helped uncover it. Max walked over to the shy boy, sitting beside him and offering his paw to shake. The boy's face lit up with joy. See, Tommy said, Max knows you understand. Sometimes doing the right thing is hard, but it's always worth it. As they drove home from the school, Lisa watched Tommy and Max in the back seat, Max's head resting on Tommy's lap as the boy read a book aloud to him. You know, Marcus said from the driver's seat, Max has done more good as a civilian than he ever did as a military dog. Not that his service wasn't important, but this, teaching kids about compassion and courage, this might be his true calling. Every dog needs a purpose, Tommy said wisely. Max's purpose is protecting people and teaching them to be brave. What's your purpose? Lisa asked her son. Tommy thought for a moment. Taking care of Max and helping other kids be brave too. As they pulled into their driveway, they noticed a familiar car parked outside. Susan Martinez was waiting for them with a camera crew. I hope you don't mind, she said, but there's been a development you need to know about. Lisa's stomach clenched. What now? Colonel Morrison's widow is suing for custody of Max, Susan explained. She claims he's military property that was illegally transferred to civilians. That's ridiculous, Marcus exploded. Morrison was a criminal who abandoned Max to die. I know, Susan said, but she has lawyers arguing that Max should be returned to military service or placed with a military family. Tommy's arms tightened around Max. They can't take him. He's ours. We won't let them, Lisa promised, though she had no idea how they would fight this. Colonel Richards, who had become like a grandfather to them, arrived within the hour. I've already called my lawyers, he said. Mrs. Morrison doesn't have a leg to stand on, but she's being backed by some of Morrison's old associates who want to discredit our evidence. By taking Max? Walter asked incredulously. By causing you pain, Richards corrected. They know how much Max means to Tommy. This is revenge, pure and simple. The legal battle that followed was exhausting. Depositions, court hearings, media scrutiny. Through it all, Max remained Tommy's constant companion, as if he understood that their bond was being threatened. The turning point. came when the judge decided to interview Tommy privately in her chambers. Max was allowed to accompany him. "Tell me about Max," the judge said kindly. Tommy told her everything, finding Max dying in the storage unit, nursing him back to health, how Max had protected them from bad people, how he helped other kids learn about kindness. "Mrs. Morrison says Max belongs with a military family," the judge said. "What do you think about that?" Tommy was quiet for a moment, his hand on Max's head. "My dad died protecting people at his construction site. He wasn't military, but he was a hero. Max doesn't care if we're military or not. He cares that we love him and that he has a job to do. His job now is being my friend and helping kids learn to be brave." "What if I said Max had to go live with someone else?" the judge asked gently. Tommy's eyes filled with tears, but his voice remained steady. "Then I would be very sad. But I would want Max to be happy and safe. That's what you do when you love someone. You want what's best for them, even if it hurts you." Max stood up and licked Tommy's tears, then turned to the judge and offered his paw. The judge shook it solemnly. "I think Max has made his choice clear." The ruling came down a week later. The judge not only granted full custody to Tommy and Lisa, but also established a precedent for retired military dogs being placed with civilian families who had bonded with them during recovery. Max's extraordinary service to his country continued when he helped expose corruption at the highest levels, the judge wrote. But his greatest service now is as a companion to a brave young boy who risked everything to save him. The court sees no benefit in separating them. Mrs. Morrison's lawyers tried to appeal, but public opinion was overwhelmingly against them. The story of Tommy and Max had captured hearts nationwide, and the idea of separating them was universally condemned. Finally, Mrs. Morrison herself came to see them. She was a small, bitter-looking woman who seemed aged beyond her years. "I wanted to see the dog my husband died for," she said coldly. "Your husband died because he was a criminal," Marcus said bluntly. "Max was just doing his job, protecting his handler from a threat." Mrs. Morrison's composure cracked. "He wasn't always bad. The money, the power, it changed him." Tommy, who had been standing protectively beside Max, surprised everyone by speaking. "I'm sorry you lost your husband. Even if he did bad things, you still loved him. That must hurt." The woman looked at the 6-year-old boy with surprise. "You're sorry? After everything?" "Everyone deserves someone to be sorry for their pain," Tommy said simply. "That's what my mom taught me." Mrs. Morrison broke down crying. Through her tears, she admitted that she had known about her husband's activities, but had been too afraid to report him. The lawsuit had been pushed by his associates, threatening her if she didn't comply. "I never wanted to take your dog," she sobbed. "I just wanted someone to blame for losing my husband." Lisa, moved by the woman's obvious pain, made a decision. "Would you like to pet Max? He's very gentle." Mrs. Morrison hesitantly reached out, and Max, sensing her distress, gently nuzzled her hand. She cried harder, but it seemed cathartic rather than painful. "He's a good dog," she whispered. "I can see why you love him." Before she left, Mrs. Morrison provided Richards with names and information about the people who had pressured her into the lawsuit. It led to several more arrests, finally closing the last chapter of the Morrison corruption ring. As autumn turned to winter, life settled into a new normal. Tommy started first grade, with Max walking him to school each morning. The crossing guard, Mr. Franklin, always had a treat ready for Max. "That dog's more punctual than my own clock," he would say. At school, Tommy had become something of a celebrity, but he handled it with remarkable grace for a 6-year-old. He always redirected attention to Max and the importance of helping animals. His teacher, Miss Anderson, incorporated Max into her lessons. For reading time, children could sign up to read to Max, who would lie patiently while they struggled through difficult words. His presence somehow made the children less self-conscious about mistakes. One day, a new student arrived, a girl named Maria who had recently emigrated from El Salvador. She spoke little English and was clearly terrified. The other children tried to be friendly, but the language barrier was difficult. Tommy had an idea. During recess, he brought Maria to where Max was waiting with Lisa, who volunteered at the school on certain days. "Max doesn't speak English or Spanish," Tommy explained through gestures and simple words, "but he understands kindness." He showed Maria how to offer her hand for Max to sniff, how to pet him gently. Max, sensing the girl's fear and loneliness, was extra gentle, eventually lying down and rolling over to show his belly, a sign of complete trust. Maria giggled for the first time since arriving at the school. She said something in Spanish that Lisa later learned meant gentle giant. From that day forward, Maria and Tommy became friends, with Max as their bridge. Maria would teach Tommy Spanish words while Tommy helped her with English, and Max would lie between them, tail wagging at their laughter. The principal, Mrs. Washington, was so impressed by Max's impact that she formally requested he become the school's therapy dog. After proper certification and training, Max began spending 3 days a week at school, working with children who had anxiety, learning disabilities, or just needed a friend. But Max's most important job remained being Tommy's protector and companion. The bond between them had only grown stronger through their trials. Copy okay? Now write section 3 of 13,000 words and end the story with call to action to like, share, comment, and subscribe. One winter evening, as snow began to fall softly outside their windows, Tommy was doing homework at the kitchen table while Max lay at his feet. Lisa was preparing dinner when the doorbell rang. Max immediately stood, alert but not alarmed, which meant he recognized whoever was outside. Walter opened the door to find a young man in military dress uniform standing stiffly in the falling snow. He was thin, with haunted eyes, and his left hand trembled slightly. "I'm looking for Tommy Chen and Max," he said formally. "My name is Specialist Ryan Cooper. I served with Sergeant Hayes and Max in Afghanistan." Marcus, who had been visiting for dinner, immediately stood. "Cooper, you were reported KIA 2 years ago." "Mistaken identity, sir. I was a POWs, just got released 3 months ago." His voice cracked slightly. "I heard about what happened here, about Max. I had to come." Tommy approached slowly, Max beside him. "You knew Max when he was a soldier?" Cooper's eyes filled with tears when he saw Max. "He saved my life, kid." "More than once." He knelt down, and Max approached him, sniffing carefully before recognition dawned. The dog's tail began wagging furiously, and he pressed his head against Cooper's chest. "Max remembers you," Tommy said with wonder. Cooper buried his face in Max's fur, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "I thought I'd never see him again. When they told me Morrison was dead and Max was missing, I thought I'd lost everything." Lisa quietly ushered everyone inside, giving Cooper time to compose himself. Over dinner, he shared his story. During a mission, their unit had been ambushed. Max had dragged him to safety after he'd been shot, staying with him for hours until rescue arrived. "I was captured 2 days later in a different operation," Cooper explained. "For 2 years, thinking about Max and the unit kept me going. The thought that I might see them again was sometimes the only thing that got me through another day." "But you're home now," Tommy said, offering the simple comfort only a child could provide. Cooper nodded, though his eyes remained troubled. "Home, but lost. Everything's different. My family doesn't know how to act around me. The military offered me a desk job, but I don't know how to be normal anymore." Max moved from his usual spot beside Tommy to lean against Cooper's leg, providing the steady pressure that often calmed anxiety. "Max has bad dreams too," Tommy said matter-of-factly. "From when he was a soldier. But they're getting better. Maybe you could help each other?" Cooper looked at the 6-year-old with surprise. "You're pretty smart for a little kid." "I've learned a lot from Max," Tommy replied simply. Over the following weeks, Cooper became a regular visitor. He would arrive in the afternoons, spending time with Max while Tommy was at school. Lisa noticed that both the man and the dog seemed to benefit from these sessions. Max's nighttime restlessness decreased, and Cooper gradually lost the haunted look in his eyes. One day, Cooper approached Lisa with a proposal. "I've been thinking about what Tommy said, about Max and me helping each other. What if we could do that for other veterans too?" "What do you mean?" "There are so many vets struggling with PTSD, and so many military dogs who need homes after retirement. What if we created a program to match them?" Lisa's eyes lit up. "That's brilliant. We have the space here, the connections through Marcus and Colonel Richards." And so, the Max Initiative was born. Using the large house and grounds that Carlisle had left them, they created a rehabilitation center where veterans could be matched with retired military dogs. Cooper became the program director, his own healing journey making him uniquely qualified to help others. The first participant was a woman named Captain Jennifer Brooks, who had lost her leg to an IED. She was paired with Rex, a bomb-sniffing dog, who had been retired after being injured in the same type of explosion. Tommy insisted on being part of the welcoming committee for each new arrival. He would tell them Max's story, showing them that healing was possible. "The dogs don't care if you're missing pieces," he told Captain Brooks. "They just care that you love them." Brooks laughed, the first genuine laugh her family had heard from her in months. "Kid, you should be a therapist." "I'm too young," Tommy said seriously. "But Max is a therapist. He can teach Rex how to be one too." The program grew rapidly. Within 6 months, they had successfully matched 15 veterans with dogs. The local news did a feature story, which went national, bringing in donations and volunteers. One volunteer surprised everyone, Mrs. Morrison, the widow of the corrupt colonel. She arrived one day with a check and an apology. "I need to make amends," she said simply. "My husband did terrible things. Maybe helping the soldiers he betrayed will balance the scales somehow." She became the program's administrative coordinator, her organizational skills and military knowledge proving invaluable. Working alongside the people her husband had wronged became her own form of therapy. Spring arrived with unexpected news. Marcus received a call from military intelligence about a discovery in Afghanistan. A hidden cache of Morrison's had been found, containing not just weapons and money, but also detailed records of American soldiers he had betrayed to enemy forces for profit. Cooper was on that list, Marcus told Lisa privately. Morrison gave up his patrol route. That's why he was captured. Does Cooper know? Not yet. I don't know how to tell him. It was Max who ultimately made the decision for them. During one of Cooper's visits, Max brought him a folder that had been left on Marcus's desk, the folder containing the information about Morrison's betrayal. Cooper read it in silence, his face going pale. Then he looked at Max, who was watching him intently. "You knew, didn't you, boy?" Cooper said quietly. "You knew Morrison was bad even then." Max moved closer, resting his head on Cooper's knee. "I should be angry," Cooper continued, "but I'm just tired. Tired of carrying hate." Tommy, who had been playing nearby, came over. "Mom says holding on to anger is like holding a hot coal. It only burns you." Cooper smiled weakly. "Your mom's smart." "She learned it from Max," Tommy said. "Max doesn't hold grudges. Even after everything bad that happened to him, he still loves people." This simple wisdom from a child seemed to break something loose in Cooper. He cried then, really cried, with Tommy and Max sitting quietly beside him, offering their presence without judgment. That evening, Cooper made a decision that would change many lives. He announced he wanted to expand the Max initiative to include a forgiveness program, where veterans could work through their anger and trauma with the help of the dogs. "These animals have seen the worst of humanity and still choose love," he explained. "They can teach us something about letting go." The program attracted the attention of Dr. Sarah Winters, a psychiatrist specializing in veteran trauma. She came to observe and stayed to volunteer, eventually developing a formal therapy protocol that combined traditional treatment with animal-assisted healing. One day, she pulled Lisa aside. "What Tommy does naturally with these veterans, the simple wisdom, the lack of judgment, it's more effective than years of traditional therapy sometimes. Have you considered having him speak at conferences?" Lisa was protective. "He's only 6. I don't want to exploit him." "Not exploit, Doctor," Winters clarified. "But his perspective could help other children who've experienced trauma. Maybe just a video message?" After discussing it with Tommy, they agreed to record a short video about his experience with Max. In it, Tommy spoke directly to other kids who might be scared or sad. "When I found Max, he was almost dead," Tommy said, looking directly at the camera. "I was scared too because my dad had died and everything was hard, but Max and I helped each other. He taught me that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you help someone even when you are scared." The video went viral, viewed millions of times, and translated into dozens of languages. Letters poured in from children around the world who had been inspired to help animals or people in need. One letter particularly stood out. It was from a boy in Syria whose family had fled the war. He had found an injured dog in a refugee camp and convinced his family to help it, citing Tommy's bravery as his inspiration. The letter included a photo of the boy with a scraggly but obviously loved dog. "We should write back," Tommy insisted. and send them some of Max's favorite toys. This sparked another idea. The Max Initiative began a correspondence program, connecting children who had rescued animals with each other across the world. Tommy became the unofficial ambassador, recording messages of encouragement with Max beside him. Summer brought an unexpected challenge. During a routine veterinary checkup, Dr. Rodriguez discovered a mass in Max's chest. The biopsy results were concerning. Cancer, though caught early. Tommy was devastated when Lisa gently explained Max's diagnosis. "But he's going to be okay, right?" Tommy's voice was small, scared in a way it hadn't been, even during their dangerous encounters with Carlisle's men. "Dr. Rodriguez is going to do everything she can," Lisa said, holding her son close. "But Max is going to need treatment, and it might make him sick for a while." "Like when Grandma was sick?" Tommy asked, remembering Walter's wife, who had passed from cancer years before he was born. "Similar, yes." Tommy was quiet for a long moment, then stood with determination. "Then we have to make all his days special. Every single one." The community rallied around them. The veterans in the program took turns visiting Max during his chemotherapy treatments. The school children made get-well cards. Even Mrs. Morrison organized meal deliveries so Lisa could focus on caring for Max and Tommy. Max handled the treatment with his characteristic stoicism, though the chemicals made him tired and nauseous. Tommy never left his side during the bad days, reading to him, lying beside him, reminding him of all their adventures. One particularly difficult night, when Max was too sick to eat and Tommy was crying quietly, thinking his mother couldn't hear, something remarkable happened. The other dogs in the program, Rex, Bella, Zeus, and Scout, all appeared at their door, having somehow escaped their kennels. They arranged themselves around Max, providing warmth and comfort to their fellow soldier. Cooper found them the next morning, all the dogs surrounding Max and Tommy, a protective circle of loyalty. "They knew," he said in wonder. "Somehow, they knew he needed them." Dr. Rodriguez was amazed when Max's next scan showed significant improvement. "The treatment is working, but I think the emotional support is just as important. This dog has more to live for than most humans." As Max recovered, Tommy had an idea. "We should have a celebration. Not just for Max getting better, but for all the dogs and people who've been brave." The Courage Festival, as it came to be known, was held on the one-year anniversary of the day Tommy found Max in the storage unit. The entire community came together in the park. There were booths about animal rescue, veteran services, and mental health resources. The military dogs performed demonstrations. Children read stories they had written about bravery. The highlight was when Tommy and Max took the stage. Max was still thin from his treatment, but his eyes were bright and his tail wagged with enthusiasm. "A year ago, Max was dying in a storage unit," Tommy began, his voice carrying across the crowd. "People ask me why I made such a fuss about saving just one dog. But Max isn't just one dog. He's shown us that everyone deserves to be saved, that everyone has value." He looked down at Max, who was gazing up at him with complete adoration. Max caught bad guys, saved soldiers, helped kids learn to read, and taught veterans how to heal. He did all that after someone tried to throw him away. Imagine what all of us could do if we just helped each other instead of hurting each other. The crowd erupted in applause, but Tommy wasn't finished. "My dad died before he could meet Max, but I think my dad would say that saving Max was the best thing I ever did. Not because Max is special, even though he is, but because helping someone who needs help is always the right thing to do." An unexpected voice called out from the crowd. "The boy is right." Everyone turned to see a man in an expensive suit walking toward the stage. Lisa recognized him as one of Carlisle's former lawyers, Mr. Harrison, who had somehow avoided prosecution. Security moved to intercept him, but he raised his hands peacefully. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here to make amends." He climbed onto the stage, facing the wary crowd. "I helped bad men do bad things. I knew Vincent Carlisle was corrupt, but I took his money anyway. I justified it by saying I was just doing my job." He looked at Tommy and Max. "But watching this boy and this dog show more courage and integrity than I ever had, I realized I needed a change." He pulled out a check. "This is every cent I ever made from Carlisle, plus interest. I want to donate it to the Max Initiative." The amount was staggering, enough to fund the program for years. Tommy looked at the man for a long moment, then extended his hand. "Thank you for being brave enough to do the right thing now." Harrison shook the small hand, tears in his eyes. "Thank you for showing me it's never too late to change." This moment of redemption rippled through the crowd. Over the following weeks, several other people connected to the corruption scandal came forward, offering apologies and restitution. The Max Initiative grew into a nationally recognized program. Fall brought a new challenge to their door, literally. Lisa opened it one morning to find a teenage girl, maybe 14, holding an injured cat. "Please," the girl said, "I heard about you, about the boy who saves animals. They're going to put her down at the shelter because she's hurt and mean. But she's not mean, she's just scared." Tommy appeared beside his mother, Max at his side. The German Shepherd sniffed curiously at the hissing cat. "What's your name?" Lisa asked the girl. "Ashley. I ran away from foster care. I know I'll get in trouble, but I couldn't let them kill Patches." Lisa made a decision that would have seemed impossible a year ago. "Come inside. Let's help Patches first, then we'll figure out the rest." Dr. Rodriguez treated the cat, who had been hit by a car and had an infected wound. Ashley stayed by her pet's side, much as Tommy had stayed with Max. "How long have you had her?" Tommy asked. "Since I was little. She's the only family I have left. Foster homes don't let you keep pets, so I've been hiding her. But when she got hurt..." Ashley started crying. Tommy looked at his mother with those expressive eyes that always meant he wanted to help. Lisa sighed, knowing they were about to get involved in another complicated situation. After some investigation, Walter discovered that Ashley had been in 7 foster homes in 3 years, running from each one to try to keep her cat. "The system failed her," he said grimly, "just like it fails so many kids." Marcus had an idea. What if the Max Initiative expanded again? What if we created a foster program that allowed pets, used the human-animal bond to help traumatized kids? It took months of legal wrangling, but eventually Ashley became the first participant in the new program. She was placed with a carefully vetted family who understood the importance of her bond with Patches. The Max Initiative provided support and resources to make it work. Tommy and Ashley became friends, bonding over their love for their animals. She taught him about cats while he shared everything he'd learned about dogs. "You're lucky," Ashley told him one day. "You have a mom who understands." "You'll have a family who understands too," Tommy said confidently. "Max says so," Ashley laughed. "Max talks to you?" "Not with words, but I know what he's thinking. Right now he's thinking Patches is getting braver." Indeed, the cat had ventured closer to Max, who remained perfectly still, allowing her to investigate. Winter arrived with a blizzard that knocked out power to half the city. The Max Initiative building became an emergency shelter, with veterans, dogs, and community members all taking refuge together. During the storm, an elderly man named Harold was brought in, half frozen and confused. He kept calling for someone named Buddy. "His dog," his neighbor explained. "Harold has dementia. He got confused in the storm and went looking for his dog that died 5 years ago." Harold was inconsolable, growing more agitated as his confusion increased. Medication wasn't helping, and he was at risk of hurting himself. Then Max did something extraordinary. He walked over to Harold, sat down beside him, and placed his paw on the man's hand. Harold looked at Max and suddenly calmed. "Buddy?" he said hopefully. Max didn't move, just maintained contact. Harold began petting him, telling him stories about their younger days, walks they'd taken, tricks they'd learned. Max listened patiently, occasionally offering a paw or gentle lick. "He knows, Doctor," Winters observed in amazement. "Max understands that Harold needs him to be Buddy right now." For 3 days, while they were snowed in, Max stayed by Harold's side, being Buddy whenever the old man needed him. Tommy helped, bringing Harold food and water, listening to his stories. When the storm cleared and Harold's daughter arrived from out of state, she was in tears. "He hasn't been this lucid in months," she said. "It's like the dog brought him back." "Max does that," Tommy said simply. "He knows what people need." Harold's daughter made a generous donation to the initiative and started volunteering regularly, bringing other dementia patients to spend time with the dogs. Spring brought its own miracle. During a routine checkup, Dr. Rodriguez delivered amazing news. Max's cancer was in complete remission. "I've never seen anything like it," she said. "His recovery is remarkable." Tommy hugged Max tightly. "I knew you were too brave to let cancer win." But the biggest surprise came a week later. Marcus arrived at the house with an official-looking envelope addressed to Tommy. "It's from the president," Marcus said, his voice filled with awe. Lisa read the letter aloud. "Dear Tommy, your extraordinary act of compassion in saving Max and your continued work helping veterans and animals represents the best of American values. It is my honor to invite you and Max to the White House to receive the Presidential Citizens Medal, our nation's second highest civilian honor. Your story reminds us that heroes come in all ages and that one act of kindness can change the world." Tommy was stunned. "We're going to meet the president? Max too?" "Max especially," Marcus confirmed. "He's being honored for his service too." The trip to Washington was surreal. Tommy wore his first real suit, and Max wore his service vest with all his medals. At the White House, they were greeted with full honors. The president knelt down to Tommy's level during the ceremony. "I understand you're the young man who taught us all about courage." "Max taught me," Tommy replied. "I just listened." The president smiled and turned to Max, offering his hand for the dog to sniff. "And you must be the famous Max. Thank you for your service, soldier." Max sat at attention and offered his paw to shake, causing everyone in the room to applaud. During his speech, the president said, "In a time when our nation feels divided, a 6-year-old boy and a military dog have shown us what unity looks like. They've shown us that compassion transcends politics, that courage isn't about being fearless, but about doing what's right despite our fears." After the ceremony, they were approached by a film producer who wanted to make a movie about their story. "We donate half the proceeds to the Max Initiative," she promised. Lisa was hesitant, but Tommy had a condition. Only if they show the truth. That Max was scared and hurt, that helping isn't always easy, and that sometimes good people do bad things and bad people can become good. The producer agreed, and the resulting film, simply titled Max and Tommy, became a worldwide phenomenon, raising millions for animal rescue and veteran programs globally. But fame didn't change Tommy or Max. They continued their routine, school visits, veteran support, in sessions and quiet evenings at home. Max still slept on Tommy's bed, still walked him to school, still stood guard when nightmares came. One evening, as they sat in the backyard watching fireflies, Ashley joined them with Patches, who now tolerated Max enough to sit nearby. "You know what's amazing?" Ashley said. "A year ago, I was homeless with a sick cat. Now I have a family, Patches is healthy, and I'm going to college next year to become a veterinarian." "That's the magic of helping," Tommy said. "When you save someone, you end up saving yourself too." Cooper, who was now engaged to Dr. Winters, joined them with Rex. "Kid's got a point. I came here broken, thinking my life was over. Now, I run a program that's helped hundreds of veterans." Mrs. Morrison, who had become like a grandmother to Tommy, added, "I came here seeking revenge and found redemption instead." Marcus looked around at their unlikely family. "We all came together because a 5-year-old boy heard a dog whimpering and refused to walk away. And because Max never gave up," Tommy added, hugging his best friend, "even when everything seemed hopeless." Max looked around at the assembled group, his pack, his family, his purpose, and his tail wagged with contentment. As summer turned to fall, Tommy started 2nd grade. His teacher asked students to write about their hero. Tommy wrote, "My hero is Max. Not because he's a war dog or because he caught bad guys, but because he showed me that love is stronger than fear." Max was left to die, but he didn't become mean. He stayed good. He protected us even when he was hurt. He helped sad people become happy and scared people become brave. Max taught me that being a hero isn't about being the strongest or the smartest. It's about not giving up on people, even when they give up on you. It's about choosing love even when you've been hurt. Some people think Max is just a dog, but they're wrong. Max is proof that every life matters and that one act of kindness can change everything. Max is my hero, but more importantly, he's my best friend. And that's the best kind of hero to have. The teacher was so moved, she submitted the essay to a national contest. Tommy won, earning a scholarship fund for his future education and a donation to the Max Initiative. At the awards ceremony, Tommy was asked to speak. He stood at the podium, Max beside him, looking out at an audience of hundreds. 2 years ago, I was just a sad kid who missed his dad, Tommy began. Then I heard Max crying for help. Adults told me I was too small to make a difference. That one dog didn't matter in the big picture, but they were wrong. He looked down at Max, who gazed back with absolute devotion. Max mattered. He mattered to the soldiers he saved, to the veterans he's helped heal, to the kids he's taught to read, to the bad guys he helped catch. But mostly, he mattered to me. He gave me purpose when I felt lost. Tommy's voice grew stronger. Every day, there are animals, and people crying for help. We can choose to walk away, to say it's not our problem, or we can be brave. We can be like Max, loyal, brave, and kind, even when the world hasn't been kind to us. The audience was silent, many wiping away tears. I'm 7 now, Tommy continued, still just a kid. But Max taught me that anyone can be a hero. You just have to care enough to try. As he finished, Max stood and placed his paw on Tommy's foot, their signal to each other that everything was okay. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Later that night, as they returned home, they found their yard full of people, veterans from the program, families they had helped, community members who'd supported them. A banner read, "Thank you, Tommy and Max, our heroes." Tommy was overwhelmed. We didn't do anything special. We just helped. Walter knelt beside his grandson. That's exactly what makes you special. You saw someone in need and didn't hesitate. That's the definition of heroism. As the celebration continued around them, Tommy and Max slipped away to their favorite spot under the big oak tree in the backyard. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear one by one. "You know what, Max?" Tommy said softly. "I think Dad would be really proud of us." Max leaned against Tommy, his warm weight a constant comfort. "We've come a long way from that storage unit," Tommy continued. "You were so scared and hurt. Now look at you. You're helping so many people." Max turned and licked Tommy's cheek, his tail wagging gently. "I love you too, boy," Tommy said, hugging his best friend. As they sat there, Lisa watched from the kitchen window, her heart full. The journey that had started with a desperate whimper from a locked storage unit had transformed all their lives in ways they never could have imagined. Marcus joined her at the window. "You raised an extraordinary boy." "He had an extraordinary teacher," Lisa replied, nodding toward Max. "What do you think comes next for them?" Marcus asked. Lisa smiled. "Knowing Tommy and Max?" "Something amazing. They seem to attract people who need help." As if on cue, the doorbell rang. Lisa opened it to find a police officer holding the hand of a small boy, maybe 4 years old, clutching a stuffed animal. "Mrs. Chen?" "I'm Officer Martinez. This is Jamie. He was found at the bus station, abandoned. He won't talk to anyone, won't let go of his toy, but he had this in his pocket." The officer handed her a crumpled piece of paper. It was a newspaper clipping about Tommy and Max, with a note scrawled on it. "Please help my son like you helped the dog." Lisa's heart broke. "Come in, Jamie. Would you like to meet Max?" The boy's eyes widened with recognition. He nodded slightly. Tommy and Max came in from the backyard, immediately sensing the situation. Max approached the frightened boy slowly, sitting down a few feet away, waiting. Jamie looked at Max, then at Tommy. In a tiny voice, he spoke his first words. "In days, is he the hero dog?" Tommy nodded. "He is, and he really wants to be your friend." Slowly, carefully, Jamie reached out and touched Max's fur. Max remained perfectly still, letting the traumatized child explore at his own pace. "See," Tommy said gently, "Max knows you're scared. He was scared once too. But it gets better, I promise." As Jamie began to pet Max more confidently, Lisa called social services, beginning the process that would eventually lead to Jamie joining their ever-expanding family. That night, as Tommy prepared for bed, he found Jamie curled up with Max in the living room, finally sleeping peacefully. "Another rescue?" Lisa asked softly. "Max doesn't know how to not help," Tommy replied, "and neither do I." "That's my boy," Lisa said, kissing his forehead. "Your father's compassion lives on in you." As Tommy headed to bed, he paused at the door. "Mom, do you think there will always be people and animals who need help?" "Probably, sweetheart." "Then Max and I will always have work to do," Tommy said with satisfaction. The next morning brought a call from the White House. The president wanted to make the Max initiative a national model, expanding it to every state. Tommy would be the youngest advisory board member in government history, the aide explained. Tommy's response was characteristic. Will Max be on the board too? He makes most of the important decisions. The aide laughed. I'm sure we can arrange that. As news of the national expansion spread, donations poured in. The small initiative that had started in their backyard would soon help thousands of veterans, children, and animals across the country. The day the announcement went public, Tommy's school held an assembly in his honor. As he stood on stage with Max, looking out at his cheering classmates, his principal asked him to share advice with other kids who wanted to make a difference. Tommy thought for a moment, his hand resting on Max's head. Start small, he said. I didn't set out to change the world. I just heard one dog crying and decided to help. You don't have to do something big. Just do something. A kindergartner raised her hand. What if we're scared? Tommy smiled. I was scared when I found Max. He was big and hurt, and I didn't know if he might bite. But being scared and doing nothing felt worse than being scared and trying to help. Besides, he added, looking down at Max, sometimes the scariest looking things turn out to be the things that need love the most. An older student asked, Do you ever wish you just walked past that storage unit? Tommy didn't hesitate. Never. Finding Max was the best thing that ever happened to me. He brought so many amazing people into our lives. He helped me understand that my dad's death wasn't the end of our story. It was the beginning of a new chapter. After the assembly, Tommy was approached by a girl holding a shoebox with holes punched in the top. I found this bird with a broken wing, she said shyly. My mom says we can't keep it, but I remembered what you said about helping. Tommy carefully looked in the box at the injured sparrow. Let's call Dr. Rodriguez. She'll know what to do. And maybe you can visit the bird while it heals, help take care of it. The girl's face lit up. Really? That's what we do, Tommy said. We help each other help others. As spring arrived once again, the Max Initiative celebrated its second anniversary. The celebration was massive. Hundreds of people, dozens of dogs, success stories from across the nation. But the most moving moment came when Sergeant Marcus Hayes, the other one, who had been Morrison's driver, arrived from Germany, finally well enough to travel. When he saw Max, both man and dog froze. Then Max let out a sound none of them had ever heard before, a howl of pure joy. He bounded across the yard, jumping up to lick the sergeant's face, his whole body wiggling with excitement. I thought I'd never see you again, boy, the sergeant said through tears. When I woke up in that hospital and they told me you were missing, presumed dead. He looked at Tommy. You saved him. You saved my brother. Tommy, wise beyond his 7 years, replied, We saved each other. That's how it works. As the sun set on the celebration, Tommy found himself back under the oak tree with Max. They were joined by Jamie, who rarely left Max's side now, and Ashley with Patches, and Cooper with Rex, and all the others whose lives had been touched by one act of compassion. Tell us the story again, Jamie requested, about how you found Max. Tommy smiled, settling in to tell the tale once more. It was a Saturday morning, and I was playing hide-and-seek at my mom's work. As he spoke, Max rested his head on Tommy's lap, his eyes closing contentedly. The scars from his ordeal were hidden beneath his glossy coat. The trauma was healing, the fear was replaced by love. Around them, the yard was full of life and laughter. Veterans playing with their dogs, children reading stories, families made whole by the simple act of caring. Mrs. Morrison approached with a photographer from Time magazine, who was doing a feature on the initiative. One more photo? She asked. Tommy looked around at all the people and animals gathered in their yard. Not just Max and me. Everyone. This is what courage looks like. A bunch of people who were hurt, helping each other heal. As they arranged themselves for the photo, Tommy and Max at the center, surrounded by their extended family of rescued and rescuers, Cooper called out, What should we say instead of cheese? Tommy grinned. How about never give up? Never give up, they all shouted in unison, their faces bright with hope and determination. The photo would later become iconic, a symbol of resilience, compassion, and the power of unconditional love. It would inspire countless others to look beyond their own struggles and reach out to those in need. But in that moment, it was simply a family portrait, a family brought together by tragedy but bound by something stronger, the understanding that every life has value, that every act of kindness matters, and that sometimes the smallest hands can lift the heaviest hearts. As the photographer packed up and the crowd began to disperse, Tommy's teacher approached with a special announcement. "Tommy, the Department of Education wants to create a curriculum based on your story and the Max Initiative. They want to teach empathy and courage in schools nationwide." "Will they teach about Max too?" Tommy asked. "Especially about Max," she assured him. That night, as Tommy lay in bed with Max beside him and Jamie curled up at their feet, Lisa came to say goodnight. "You know you've changed the world, right?" she said softly. Tommy shook his head. "Max changed the world. I just opened a door." "And that made all the difference," Lisa said, kissing both boys goodnight. As she turned off the light, Tommy whispered to Max in the darkness, "Thank you for not giving up in that storage unit. Thank you for waiting for me to find you." Max's tail thumped against the bed, and he scooted closer to Tommy, his warmth a constant reminder that love is stronger than fear, hope is stronger than despair, and sometimes the greatest adventures begin with the smallest acts of courage. The story of Tommy and Max would continue to ripple outward, touching lives across the globe. Books would be written, documentaries filmed, and programs established. But at its heart, it would always remain the simple story of a boy who heard a cry for help and refused to walk away, and a dog who proved that no one is too broken to be saved. Years later, when Tommy was grown with children of his own, he would still tell the story of Max. He would show them the photos, the medals, the letters from people whose lives were changed. But most importantly, he would teach them the lesson Max had taught him, that everyone deserves compassion, that courage comes in many forms, and that the smallest act of kindness can change the world. And somewhere, in whatever place heroes go when their work is done, Max would be watching, his tail wagging with eternal pride at the boy who saved him and became the man who saved so many others. The Max Initiative would grow to become one of the largest animal-assisted therapy programs in the world, helping millions of veterans, children, and families. But it all started with a 5-year-old boy who heard a whimper and chose to act. As Tommy would say in his speeches years later, "Max taught me that heroes aren't born, they're made. They're made in the moments when we choose compassion over indifference, action over apathy, love over fear. Every one of you has the power to be someone's hero. You just have to listen for the whimpers and have the courage to open the door." The legacy of Max would live on, not just in the programs and policies created in his name, but in every person who chose to help instead of hurt, to rescue instead of ignore, to love instead of fear. It would live on in every child who stood up to bullies, every veteran who sought help, every animal given a second chance. But most of all, it would live on in the unbreakable bond between a boy and his dog, a bond that proved that love transcends species, that loyalty transcends hardship, and that sometimes the most profound truths come from the simplest friendships. As the final chapter of their story drew to a close, one thing remained certain. The world was a better place because a 5-year-old boy named Tommy heard a German shepherd named Max crying in a storage locker and refused to walk away. And that, perhaps, is the most important lesson of all, that we all have the power to change lives, to rewrite destinies, to transform tragedy into triumph. We just have to be brave enough to answer the call when we hear it. The story of Tommy and Max reminds us that heroes come in all shapes and sizes, that courage isn't the absence of fear, but action in spite of it, and that the greatest adventures often begin with the simplest acts of kindness. Their tale would be told for generations, inspiring countless acts of compassion and bravery. But it all started with 3 simple words that changed everything. We'll help him. And in those 3 words lies the power to change the world. One rescue, one life, one act of love at a time. If this incredible story touched your heart, if Tommy and Max's journey inspired you to look at the world differently, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from and share your own stories of rescue and redemption. Subscribe to our channel for more amazing true stories that prove love conquers all. And remember, you don't have to be big to make a big difference. You just have to care enough to try. Together, we can create a world where no cry for help goes unanswered, where every life is valued, and where courage and compassion triumph over cruelty and indifference. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey, and remember, never give up, because you never know who might be waiting for you to save them.